This is about power and who is allowed to use it.
What is that?
What's up, everyone? Perri Nemiroff here for Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm lucky enough to be sitting with the team behind The Acolyte. Huge congratulations on your show. I have seen 4 episodes. I am obsessed.
Thanks, Perri.
Leslye, you're getting my first question here. So more often than not, when it comes to live action Star Wars, we're used to learning new things about the Jedi via the Skywalker era. You veer towards High Republic. Why did you make that choice, and what new layers do you add to the Jedi by approaching it from that specific time period?
That's a great question. I think that the time period we're in, which is between the High Republic and the prequels, find the Jedi at a point in their power where they are completely unchallenged, and they're getting into a place of safety. They are the guardians of peace and justice throughout the galaxy, and they're doing a very good job of that, if I do say so myself. A threat like May is something they're not prepared for. It's something that even as high through the ranks as Vernestra Rwoh, they have to essentially take care of it and not let the general public know that they are vulnerable in that particular way. And what I thought was really rife for drama was, how does an institution, even a good one, respond to a small threat, but a serious one at that? So that seemed like fertile ground for me in storytelling.
Oh, I'm going to dig into more of the details in a minute, but a big group question for everybody, because one of the things that I love most about Star Wars is I've been a fan since I was a teeny tiny child, and with every new thing that's released, I find something new to love about it. And I imagine that happens with all of you when you go from viewing Star Wars to actually being in it. So can you each tell me something new you came to love about Star Wars because now you're a part of the franchise?
That's a good question, Perri.
I try.
Well, I say this a lot. I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but what I love so much about Star Wars is that it has so many film references in it, and that's why it's so beloved and also considered to be an important part of the legacy of film, because it's basically, you know, samurai in space in the middle of a Western. And so there's this history of referencing Eastern philosophy, Eastern martial arts, and we get to continue to do that in this one while also introducing some concepts that have been touched on before. You know, yin and yang has been referenced before in The Last Jedi and in Clone Wars, but we get to really lean into that imagery and the significance of that and the relationship between the light and dark side of the Force and yin and yang.
Well said. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
It was just so good. We can't top it.
I will happily take that. I'm coming back to you, Amandla, because I want to hear a little bit about May's connection to the dark side, and I guess pretty much figuring out the extent of it and where to draw the line. Does she have a moral compass left? And if so, what guides it?
Wow. Okay. Well, I play the character. That means that I have to have as much empathy as possible for the character. And so I believe that May has an incredible moral compass. Now, it's at odds with the world around her, and she doesn't necessarily identify just as Sith. And I think that's what makes the world that Leslie's building so interesting, is there's a lot more room in this world for Force users that don't really fit into the binary of light and dark, while of course still very much playing and centering those characters too. So May is a bit rogue in that, like, she has affiliates, but she has her own agenda at the same time.
I find that middle ground that has those like unexplored layers so fascinating. I'm so eager to learn more about that from her perspective. Manny, I'm coming your way because when we first meet him in the show, he's got a relationship with May, and it was making me wonder, one, does he truly trust May? And 2, does he truly care about what happens to her?
Ooh, yeah, I feel with Kymir's solo nature, he definitely comes from a very selfish standpoint. He comes from it from the standpoint of, like, who can he use to his advantage? So does he really care about me? It may seem like that. Does he only care for himself? Probably 100%. But the way that, Amandla and I have always approached it in that relationship was always very much brother and sister. Like sometimes, you can't choose your family. Sometimes you're stuck together. And even if you hate each other, you still need each other. So, approaching it in that sense was kind of the way we moved forward. So I think there could be a bit of attachment. And I think that what makes it a bit more special, because you got to have that sense of attachment. If it's completely detached, then it's nobody's really going to care for it. So I think there's a bit of love there.
Your character is one of the most challenging to track in these 4 episodes, but that answer just
Excellent.
made me veer
Drag him,
towards
drag
the
him.
other way now.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think anymore. JJ, I'm going to
perfect.
come your way now. So I've seen that Leslie's mentioned that you bring something to Soul that we don't often see in a lot of Jedi. It's an emotional complexity. Can you tell me a little bit about where that emotion comes from and why he has it when other Jedi normally don't?
제가 생각했을 때는 기본적으로 제다이 마스터인데도 불구하고 그 두려움과 공포를 느끼는 모습이 함께 보여지면은 너무 좋을 것 같다라고 생각했고, 그리고 사실은 시나리오에 그렇게 쓰여져 있는 것 같았어요. 그래서 굉장히 무술 실력도 좋고 강한 포스를 가지고 있는 제다이 마스터인데도 불구하고 어떤 그 상황과 사건을 만났을 때 그때마다 느껴지는 공포와 그 두려움이 시나리오에 너무 잘 쓰여져 있었는데, 그 점이 굉장히 다른 제다이들과 좀 다른 면이 아닌가라는 생각이 들었고, 연기하면서도 그런 흔들리는 제다이의 모습을 연기하는 것이 굉장히 흥미롭고 즐거웠습니다.
I think Master Soul is a character that actually experiences fear despite being a Jedi Master. So I kind of noticed that from the moment I read the script, that when he faces all these different scenarios, he feels that intrinsic fear that other people feel, and he feels shaken, and I really wanted to express that through my character of Master Soul.
Comes through quite strongly here. So Dafne, for you now, Jackie is Soul's Padawan. Can you tell me something about Soul that she loves and she wants to emulate herself, but also something unique to her in terms of the path she wants to carve for herself going forward?
Jackie's relationship with Soul is very much that of idolizing him. I think everything about Soul is what she wants to be, and also that sense of her not being that and wanting to be this kind of calm, collected, serene, perfect. In the beginning he seems perfect, and I think what's so brilliant about Soul is how he kind of goes on unraveling and how JJ created that. I did a lot of with JJ where I'd copy what he did, so if you look at it, I like walk like him, I do my hands like he does it, because it was truly the way that I read Jackie was truly she wants to be him. I think that's also the path she wants to carve for herself. She wants to be like Soul in every way.
Just so people can look out for stuff like that, what is one specific thing you remember doing to emulate JJ's performance?
Anytime you see me and JJ walking next to each other, I am copying him. Whatever he's doing with his hands, I'm doing. And specifically, I figured that out on my first day on set, which I did with JJ, which was also so wonderful that it was so almost symbolic that my first day on set was just with JJ, which was so perfect because it was also gave me like a bit of a backstory of like this would have been what her life was, just kind of with Soul before her life explodes in front of her in a way. And it was just me and JJ in the corridors in Olega walking around.
I'm definitely going to be looking out for that now every episode I watch. Charlie, for you now, in these first 4 episodes, it seems like George trying to like really present like his authority in the group, and
Right.
it was making me wonder, what do you think he thinks his biggest roadblock is in terms of becoming the Jedi he wants to be and having the position in the order he ultimately wants?
So I had a little bit of a secret. I don't even know if I talked to Leslye about this, but I believed that Jord had a little bit of a difficulty tapping into the Force, utilizing it in the ways that he wanted. He was always more ingrained with his physical nature, the fighting, the swordsmanship, I would say, sabering. So something about, reaching the levels of, say, a Soul. And I really got fascinated in developing these Jedi and all of us kind of seeing the differences between them. And just even JJ bringing up, there's a beautiful part of, being a godlike creature, godlike character, but trying to better yourself or knowing that the story is never entirely finished. There's always going to be development and growth. It's human, it's the thing that I think as audiences we can tap into. So playing around with those levels within Yord of, I can achieve the most successful moments of force wielding, and how does that take away from my thoughts of myself, kind of played all the way back around.
I love tracking him with stuff like that.
You try tracking me, explaining it. I don't even know what I just said, but
you put such great thought into this, and it's clear you know your stuff. I appreciate it.
I love Yord. I
can tell.
And I kind of love to hate Yord, you know what I mean? He's a sweetie. And the name fits.
I mean, don't we all have things that you love to love and love to hate? So I get it. I get it. All right, Rebecca, I'm coming your way because I'm curious about how you approach playing Vernestra as a leader in the Jedi Order. What do you think her dream is for the Jedi Order going forward? How does she want to lead this organization to help it become what she wants it to become?
I mean, where Vernestra is in her life at over 100 years old, it's a huge honor, the position that she's in. She's a revered Jedi. And I think she really wants to keep the Jedi in the entity that they are and keep the Senate separate. And she can feel the encroaching politics throughout the series.
I love character growth, but the way you're expanding the Jedi Order and digging into those layers delights me to no end, or terrifies me, one or the other. Jodie, I already said this to you earlier. I love witchy things, and I know we've seen witches in Star Wars before, but if I were to ask Anasea to I guess define a witch in her world, how might she define what it means to be a witch?
It always felt really clear to me that there was something about a connection to life itself, to the earth, to each other, that defined what being a witch means for Anasea. It is all about the connection to self and other. And in that way, it takes it from being this thing that is achievable only by a select ordained group, and more about something that feels a little bit, I don't want to use the word purer, but maybe more maybe raw is a better word to use. Something that is a bit, when I say pure, I mean just simplistic in the fact that it's just more about life, and the essence of life and tapping into the essence of life. It isn't about something that is representing a political entity or about the establishment or about some sort of dogmatic power that says who can and cannot be a part of it. It's about connection to something much simpler and much purer, and that is life.
I feel like I'm greedy by saying this, but you just delivered a great season. I wouldn't mind a whole nother show about the Coven's backstory.
I
Star
completely
Wars,
agree.
The Coven.
It's interesting because this is the exact conversation I actually had with Kathleen and with Leslye. And it's just Leslie's created something, and even just given us a taste of something that feels so rich. You could literally, I think, dive into each of these characters on their own for an entire season, and it feels so visceral. And so it's just I think each of us, and I'll only speak for myself, but I certainly was okay, so what else can I do and how? Because I would love to keep telling this story and to really go all the way inside and through it and just tell more of it.
I'm here for it all. All right, I'm going to open this up to the whole group now, because one of my favorite qualities of this show is the emphasis on practical effects, whereas, a lot of the Star Wars shows we've seen recently heavily use things like the volume, and great respect for digital effects. I think there are wizards that make that stuff, but I love the tactile feel here. So, Leslye, why did you think that was the best way to bring this material to life? And for the entire group, can you give me an example of a time when, because something was physically there and you could interact with it, it made something easier and better to play?
Well, I think utilizing the practical sets and the effects, the puppetry, all of that was an element of the original trilogy that always was so fascinating that I responded to as a child. I think when you're a child too, you don't think of a sci-fi or galactic conflict being in a tactile universe, in a place that feels dirty and beat up. And so when I got the opportunity to play in this world, it was kind of a non-starter that we would utilize those same techniques. Obviously, we do have digital effects, VFX, all of those trimmings, but I think there were certain things that as we got further into moving in that direction, that while there were complications, it forced us to develop new ways of making something work. It's like necessity is the mother of invention, right? So like a great example for me, and I'll open up to the group as well, but a great example for me was that there was a lightsaber that I wanted to have work in a particular way. It's not the light whip. It's a different lightsaber. And when I brought it to the prop department, who have been making lightsabers for the sequels and for Solo and the other television shows, they told me, you can't do that. That's not something that will work. And I said, please, can you guys, if you'll just indulge me, it's not something I'm ready to give up. And these incredible craftsmen were able to make my dream come true for me. And that was, so not just getting to play with lightsabers or just getting to be in the Star Wars universe, but also collaborating with designers, both costume production designers, Neil Scanlon, who's a living legend with the creature design and the puppetry, not only getting to collaborate them, but getting to problem solve with them on a real plane and not just up in our heads or working through computer generated imagery. So I'll open up to everybody, but that was
Briefly, this lightsaber you tease, I assume it's after the episodes I've seen.
Oh yeah, you have to keep watching the show if you want the cool stuff. You know,
I'm ready. I've already seen a bunch of cool stuff. I don't know what you're talking about.
I think it was really brilliant that Leslye put that intention into the weight of the sabers, just because like Star Wars fans love a lot of the prequel stunt sequences, especially Darth Maul, because they're so fast-paced and gnarly, and the combat is just so enticing and immersive, you know, and that's a really important part of Star Wars too. So to ensure that the sabers aren't too heavy and that they can really be utilized in a flexible way to give the fans awesome action sequences, I think is so cool.
Anyone else have an example of a practical element?
When you're doing stunts, it's very easy to, because it's so safe and it's so protected, to kind of feel almost impersonal. And I think the fact that we were doing stunt sequences in like forests and outside and sometimes on locations or on sets that felt like it raised the stakes and it felt much more real as an actor and as a performer, to kind of have something that you're, apart from just remembering your choreo, you're also fighting against the elements a bit.
Oh, something else I meant to mention is the makeup in the show. That what Dafne and Rebecca did, and the development of Mother NSA's Mark and all of this. I mean, sometimes people do rely on VFX to achieve that, but to have actors willing to sit in long hours of, long hours of makeup was. To make some of my favorite species come to life was pretty cool.
Well worth it.
I was speaking earlier when Rebecca and I were together about just, you know, when you walk onto set and how that feels like you're in the world. And I remember the first time that I came to set was actually before I started filming, and it was to watch Amandla and Carrie Ann do their combat scene. And I remember I could smell the sand and the dust, and that was the first overwhelming feeling, was when I smelt it and I was like, oh, like I'm in a world. And you know, even on our, you know, the beautiful sets that we had for Brendock, so you know, the fortress, everything just like so beautiful and interesting, and those, even the backdrops that were actually all hand painted. And I mean, these backdrops, I mean, I don't know, Leslye, how tall was that backdrop? I mean, how many feet high was that? And it was hand, I mean,
it was high. It was also cold.
Yes.
It was very, very cold.
It was very cold, yes. So like Daphne
JJ remembers. JJ.
Yeah, fighting against the elements certainly helps.
That's what I felt bad about.
Yeah, and definitely those stairs that we came down at the fortress, I definitely thought that I could possibly die, so it did feel life or death.
Also, we had incense often on set. Like the smoke and fog that was utilized in order to build out the texture of the air. A lot of the time it was like this intense, like enveloping incense that really transported you there.
I also, speaking of it being cold, I also thought it was really funny when Amandla and Manny had to wear like these big coats when we were shooting in Madeira and it was really hot. Sorry, I just thought it was funny. It looked terrible.
Because we had
Looked
to
like it was
cover up
really-
our outfits in case they got photographed. That was the funniest thing, is like being in costume, and then if we had to ever transport from point A to point B, like putting this giant tarp basically over our bodies so that we wouldn't get papped.
Sorry, already wearing
over our
giant
faces
tops.
too. Daphne and I were
Speaking
covered
of
over our
papped,
faces.
Speaking of papped, my favorite pap moment was when people took photos of Margarita and everyone was like, Dafne Keen on set of The Acolyte. And all my friends kept sending it to me and I was like, that's not me. Can you stop sending me this?
I can't imagine juggling that kind of pressure when you're working on something like this. JJ, I'll circle back to you with that question. Can you recall a time on set when having something practically there to play with benefited your performance?
실제로 그렇게까지 스케일이 크고 디테일하게 만들 줄은 정말 몰랐고 웬만하면 다 CGI를 활용할 줄 알았는데 실제로 진짜 다 만들어 놨어요. 그래서 그거에 굉장히 상당히 놀랐는데 그게 정말로 진짜 연기하는데 너무 도움이 되고 마치 진짜 그 상황에 쏙 들어가 있는 듯한 느낌 때문에 훨씬 더 연기하기가 쉬웠던 것은 사실입니다.
So I really didn't know that there would be so many elements of a practical set when I stepped on, and I was really awestruck at the scale and the level of detail, and I was really expecting a lot more CGI, so I was really surprised, and I think it helped me focus on my acting and really be immersed in the world.
I love those qualities of shows like this.
I have one actually that I want to share about, which is my droid, because my
Obsessed with Pip.
yeah, my droid is so special and he's so cute, and there was so much love and care and detail put into his creation. We actually auditioned puppeteers to audition for the personality of Pip, you know, because he has a very unique personality. And so we read with a few different people, and then we settled upon Jack, because Jack just brought this sort of innocent quality to Pip that was also fearless, that we felt like would be really important as Osha's sidekick. And when we talked to him about it, he actually said that he based a lot of Pip's mannerisms off of his newborn daughter. And I just thought that was so beautiful, because I think he really does have this innocence and also this courageousness that children have. But it was such a unique relationship to have, because I had this we called him the Tiny Lexus because he was such an intricate puppet. But I had him on my body at all times, and Jack was puppeteering him at all times, which also just speaks to Jack's dedication. It didn't matter if the cameras were rolling or not. Pip was always like interacting with me, saying what's up, moving his little head around. Jack was always, you know, hidden in a corner 20 feet away, watching my every movement and puppeteering Pip. And it was like this really special friendship that he and I developed as an actor and puppeteer that was like almost parasocial, but it was like incredibly intimate because he was always with me all the time.
I mean, that was all the creatures too. Just to like piggyback off of it, we had so many experts who were just so brilliant at what they were bringing to it. It made all of our jobs incredibly easier. When you get to walk onto a set and feel the ferns, I mean, literally watching it, and that first scene when I'm coming into your room and we see the little robot, and I remember the person getting into the suit and walking around. That kind of like the creature work and the people at Lucas, the commitment to offset would be having whole conversations. 6 people controlling the mouth movements of one creature. It's just work that I couldn't even achieve. You know what I mean? That's brilliant, brilliant performance level stuff. And it helps all of us incredibly.
I can't believe it isn't until right now that I would realize the necessity of auditioning a puppeteer to play a character like that, because all the droids are filled with so much personality, and that comes from like an artist with their own specific voice and vision. I love it. And I'm also making lists of things that I want to buy. I want my own Pip, and I think you should manufacture these incense so that people could bring them home and feel like they're in Star Wars. Just a request.
Such a good idea. You're hired for the marketing team.
Leslye, for you, one thing that always fascinates me is the process of choosing lightsaber colors. So for your original characters here, can you tell me how you specified specific colors for each?
Purely aesthetic. It's like thinking ahead and going, okay, when this saber's fighting this saber, when this person's fighting this person, will it be more interesting for them to have this color or this color? I mean, with the exception of Vernestra, that was the only canon lightsaber that we had to worry about. Everybody else was brand new characters. So Vernestra's is purple. It's also a light whip. You're welcome. But that's canon. That's in the High Republic novels and the YA books. So yeah, it really is just all except for JJ's, who I always knew was going to be blue. I don't know. He was just always going to be blue. He's wearing blue right now.
Time over the course of my life, I have sat there and figured out ways to attribute specific colors to specific characters is blowing my mind. But it's
like an aura, kind of.
Yeah, I feel like at least I've made that excuse in my head. I have decided I have an orange lightsaber for no specific reason.
I think that checks out.
I'll take it. And it feels like it's in this setting now too.